Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a weird video setup just for this one. So I've found that uh, Studio One and OBS don't like to play together super well. So instead, I'm going to be recording all of my audio just separately and then putting it back instead of streaming it because when they both share the normal microphone, they don't like to do that. So this is just the quickest and easiest thing to do. So I'm going to just get right into it. Let me just hide OBS. And now we're here. Back into Studio One. So if you haven't been able to tell by the title of either the video or of the project I've got right here, what I'm going to be talking about is just the basic uses of automation. So automation is a very useful tool that can really make your rendered projects really pop and be useful and create effective sounds. So what automation is essentially taking some parameter and programming a change in it over time. It's going to happen automatically. There's a few different ways you can go about setting up, the automation setup. You can actually make an entire track that appears here so you can see all of the automation at once. That can be useful if you have a lot of things going on, but what I'm going to show you is how I tend to use it, which is a bit more how I learned when I was first using Logic, which is kind of the first DAW I learned how to use. This is a little bit more set up like that. So just be aware of that. When I play things, I'm going to take my headphones and try to put them by the microphone just so you can hear it, and we'll go from there. So yeah, actually let me just put these down so I can set them next to the microphones when we're ready. Alright, so what I've got here is a file, Floating Home by Brian Bolger. This came from the YouTube audio library, so this shouldn't give me any kind of copyright problems. If it does, YouTube needs to fix their algorithm. But it shouldn't. I'm not expecting it. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just because I'm not planning on using any other tracks for right now. So I've gone ahead and just loaded this audio sample in. There we go. It's pretty straightforward. What I want to point out here is this icon, which you can kind of see it's got some lines and dots. It looks kind of like a V with a curve. And if I hover over it, you can see that there's a keyboard shortcut A to bring this up. But if you click on it or hit A on your keyboard, everything that's right here will kind of update and change just a little bit. But that's it. You'll notice that by default it says display off. So it's not going to show anything. If you click on that, we have a few things right here. So the first one is volume and panning. So let's start with volume because that'll be easiest for me to pull up in this kind of, I'm visiting family sort of home studio setup. So if I click this, you'll see that this grays out because we're no longer editing the audio, we're editing the volume of the track. You're also going to see this line right here. This line shows the current audio level for this track at that given point of time. So for this one, I'm going to click here and you see it adds a dot. I'm going to click there, we add another one. There you can click and drag these in order to change the audio parameters. So I'm just going to make this just like so. And if I play this, we should be able to hear it. Just let me get my slightly weird setup going. I'm just gonna, as we get to the top of this peak, I'll wrap that out. But you should have noticed that it got louder and quieter as we went along. And if that didn't really transfer very well in the recording, you can at least see that this volume meter here was going up and down to match with the the line right here. So that's I mean automation in a nutshell. But there's more things we want to talk about. The first is you'll notice that this is set to read as soon as I clicked it and added that dot. What this means is that as the song plays through, it's going to just read whatever the automation levels are here. This is very important to make sure that it says read, because otherwise you can accidentally overwrite all of your automation. If you click on it, there's a few things here. So read, touch, latch, write, read and write are probably the most common ones you're going to use. Let me just show you what happens if we set it to write and start playing. So you'll notice it's overwriting the old things. It's writing a new value. So this is very useful for if you have a MIDI controller. Maybe you set up the knobs to control this or a slider. And as you're playing, you can kind of live mix with the MIDI what the levels are and get it just right. But you, again, want to make sure that you... just lighten that up kind of how it was, that you go back to read afterwards, because when it's at read, it's just going to read what's there. It's not going to overwrite the new stuff. That's very, very important. You can get into touch and latch, but I'm not really going to get into it that much. I mostly use read and write. But there's that. You'll also notice that on the various segments, when I hover over it, there's a dot. So you can click and you can drag in order to kind of give these curves, so you can give it exponential or logarithmic changes in the pattern here. So if I were to just play this, you would see that this changes a little differently. So hopefully you got the idea there, or can at least see it. So again, this is a very useful thing to do when you're really wanting to control the changes between two levels, because very rarely people won't hear things. I should say they will not hear things as a kind of standard, just straight linear path. Tends to be a bit of a taper in terms of volume and other parameters. So being able to fine tune that is very useful. It's very intuitive, so you can, do I want more? Do I want less? Do I want to go the other direction? So you can really, really specify that. The other thing is you'll notice that there's still this gray line here, and that's just showing us where that 0 point is again. So if I wanted to bring it back up to 0, I can get it, real close, and then fine tune it with that that marker from there. So that's just basic automation. I also want to point out that by default, instead of automation volume, you can control panning. It's a little different. You can see it now that we've changed it. You can see kind of grayed out the other parameter, but now panning, just add a few points to edit here, is kind of moving in between the left and the right speakers and different combinations of that. And again, just like other stuff, you can make things exponential or logarithmic. Let me do it like this. And get some really interesting results. So I'll play this section right here. And let me just go back a little bit, actually, just so we'll start in the middle. And you should be able to hear it switching between the speakers. Right now it's also quieter. You can kind of see it lining up with the other one. And then now it's going to start moving more so into the other pan on the right. Or I guess the left, because I'm holding these headphones backwards. So again, you get the idea. It's I'm not 100% sure how well that came through with my uh, chosen sample there, but this is something that's very useful for again wanting to, you know, again you want to mix your sounds so that they appear, you know, well within the stereo field, but you can change that and automate that so you can have things move around between different speakers. It's very fun and easy to work with. But again, using automation, you can set that so that it automatically does it how you want every time. You don't have to manually change it and do things. You can just set it and it will happen. The last thing is that I want to point out this add and remove. So basically, there's a lot of stuff here that we can work with. Actually, not at the moment, but by now we can set up, mute. You can so this on the right side of my screen. This is all of the parameters that you can set to be automated, and over here on the left is everything that is currently automated. So you select what you want and add it. Right now, there's not a lot of stuff, so let me just drop in an effect real quick. It looks like we're gonna go with a chorus. So I'm gonna drag and drop that right there. So now we have some more stuff to work with. So if I go to add or remove, you'll notice that this new window has popped up that says inserts and insert one chorus. So this is every parameter of that chorus effect that we can automate. So let's say I wanted to do, what do we have here? Depth. I wanted to add depth to the list, and I wanted to add bypass to the list. So we'll have all of that right there. We can close this out, and now on this drop-down menu, we get these two options. So maybe, I want to have my audio sample drop down gradually to depth over here. Then when we get to this point, it'll come up and then kind of exponentially fall off, kind of like that. We'll pretend that that's really good. And then for my bypass, I want things to just gradually, it's either on or off. So I want this section for it to bypass it, and then when we come back here, I want to turn the bypass off. So again, we can combine all of these automation effects together in order to get some unique sounds. Let me actually hold the headphones in the right direction this time. So we'll kind of get through there. So you can see all of the lines kind of grayed out, and it will pop up the specific ones when we need it. So now then that chorus effect should be changing a little. We've got all the panning and volume adjustments that we played around with earlier. I didn't do it very intuitively. I just kind of randomly picked some stuff, but it's just kind of to show the concept. Alright, I'm only going to go to about the 1 minute 25 second mark where this bypass goes back to off. So now at this point you should be hearing that the effect is being bypassed because we turned it on. I do just want to point out that if an audio effect only has an on-off option, that it doesn't have values that you can set, then it will just jump between the top and bottom of the track here, like you see this kind of square wave looking bit. Okay. So that's that. The last thing I want to show you is that there's this little power button icon here, and that is that you can turn the automation on and off. So let's say you wanted to play with the panning again, but you weren't sure if you liked it or not. So you can play through it, listen to it, so you'll see, the panning's changing as you go, but maybe you don't like that, but you want to hear it again. You can go back here, and this will turn the panning off. So now you see that this is not changing, but once we turn it back on, it's starting to apply the effect. The automation, we can turn it off and compare things back and forth. It's a very useful little toggle right there. So anyways, that's gonna be it for this one. This was, hopefully a fairly short video. I just wanted to show you just what automation was, how you can use it, and how you can select whatever parameters that you want to be able to automate and stick that in. Just be aware that automation applies to everything on this track. So let's say if I wanted to add another file over here to edit, you just have to be mindful of where this automation ends. So you'll have to, just be aware of that and maybe make some edits or put your files on separate tracks. That's totally up to you, though. All right, so I'm just going to end it here. If you have any questions or anything, please put that down in the comments. I love, seeing questions, answering them as best I can. If you liked the video or you learned something, feel free to give it a like and subscribe and all the other YouTube stuff. And yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll see you all next time that I see you. Bye.